You survived a turbulent 2020, and now it's a new year. Maybe your budget rolled over, perhaps you're doing a church-wide prayer and fasting campaign to kick off the year. Christmas just ended, Easter is somehow not too far away. So what can we expect for the year ahead? In this video, I'll share with you the church trends that are standing out the most to me, the kinds of things we're all gonna have to reckon with this year, whether we'd prefer to or not. So let's explore it together and dive in. Well, hey there, I'm Brady. This is Pro Church Tools, and we're here to help your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. We've got more than 100,000 church leaders with us on this journey, which is pretty remarkable, and we'd love to have you join us. To do that, just hit the subscribe button and the little church bell to get notified as soon as we drop new videos. And let's not waste any time here. Church trend number one for the year ahead: church attendance will not recover. A gloomy note to start, no doubt, but I think we need to begin here because we can't afford to ignore this truth. And the first thing I want you to look at is this chart from Barna that tracks church attendance in America all the way back to 93. Now, for reference, I was born in 91, so this chart basically shows my entire life. It's not a small amount of data. And as Barna states it, the graph visualizes the share of Americans who said they attended church in the last 7 days. It's also crucial to know that the 2020 number on this graphic you see is a pre-pandemic percentage. That's important because it shows a clear trend, one that really picked up steam around 2010, coinciding with the rise of digital platforms. And so when the pandemic came around last year, it was like throwing gas on an already burning fire. Because now, also from Barna, recent data shows that among those who identify as Christian and agree strongly that faith is very important in their lives, and attended church at least monthly prior to COVID-19, about 1/3 of those people have stopped attending church altogether. The pandemic has greatly accelerated an already decade-long trend, not instigating something new, but fast-tracking what was already happening. And this leads me to my overall conclusion here, and that is, I do not expect church attendance to recover this year. I would be surprised if it ever recovers to the numbers we saw in the late 90s and early 2000s. Some of this is emblematic of a cultural landscape that is changing, a slow change that takes place over decades and generations, but some of it is also just practical. I've got pastor friends of mine that have said to me in the last year, this is what it's like to have a 2-day weekend? Wow, I can get used to this. And that's a feeling being shared by many churchgoers and is certainly playing some role in this drop of attendance. So what are we supposed to do about it? Well, that leads me to trend number two, because out of this changing landscape and lower attendance numbers, I expect to see two camps emerge. Churches that embrace a hybrid model of ministry and churches that dig their heels in and reject it. And look, I get it. After being apart from in-person church for so long, or after having to host modified in-person gatherings, it's human nature to want that back in full. I want that also. But consider the first trend, that large group not participating in church anymore. And think of how that is symptomatic, not really of a pandemic, but of a colossal cultural shift powered by digital platforms like the one you're watching this video on right now, that's not going away anytime soon. If you're not able to embrace a hybrid model of church and work to see offline ministry and online ministry working together in harmony, you'll disqualify yourself and your church from reaching a massive group of people. A massive group of people that actually identify as followers of Christ. And if you're curious what a hybrid model of ministry actually looks like, well, you're not alone. And these are the types of questions that will define the next 10 to 25 years of ministry that you and I are involved in as we try to navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years, which is why, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe because, we're here to help and we're in this together. But we also have a free workshop on this as well. Our social media crash course for smaller churches. It's about 45 minutes long, and it gives you and your church everything you need for the year ahead on social, including a written policy template, a social media calendar, dozens of social media post ideas as well. Again, it's completely free. Linked in the description, also linked above me on demand so you can go through it at your own pace. So do make sure to check that out. Now, you might be thinking at this point, well, what about these so-called Christians that aren't attending church anymore? Why do we have to change for them? It's not easy for us out here as church leaders. And Christianity has been getting a bad rap for the last couple of years. That leads me to trend number 3. Churches that cry, "Woe is me," will not reach people outside of the Christian bubble. And I'm going to try to say this with as much empathy as I can, because it is, of course, a human impulse to react and say, well, what about the other side? When you feel like you're being attacked or told how you need to change. And that's how I've started this video, right? Church attendance is declining. What are you going to do about it? And you might be feeling that in your gut right now. Okay, sure, Brady, churches aren't perfect, but like, what about these lukewarm Christians? What about culture's assaults on our rights? Here's the thing though, nobody cares. And please hear me out on this, because I make videos like this to help our churches be more effective in fulfilling our missions. And said simply, nobody likes the person or the entity that is always playing the victim. And if I may, churches have had it real good for a real long time in the Western world. Just consider the tax-exempt status of religious institutions in places like Canada and America, and the hundreds of millions of dollars that have not gone to paying tax in the 2000s alone. Now, I'm not trying to say unfair treatment never happens, and right now it can certainly be tough to see airlines operating, big box stores open, and feel like your church can't do what it wants to do. Nor am I suggesting the government has competently handled this pandemic, but whatever side you fall on, please consider the optics. Because here's the bottom line. You cannot expect to be a positive force of change in culture if you're always crying, "Woe is me." Nobody wants to hear it. And while it may work in the short term organizationally at rallying other Christians to your church that feel similar, it will do cumulative harm to our global mission of bringing the hope of Christ to the world. Trend number 4, new expressions of church will be birthed out of this pandemic. Now, this is something I've been dwelling on for close to a decade now, basically ever since my idealized 20-year-old self graduated from Bible college. Why does one expression of church dominate the Western world? That's this question that I've always been asking myself. And the answer to that, I think, really comes down to economics. More than anything, Christians, in North America especially, have a certain expectation when it comes to church. Church is 4 songs and a message, or something quite akin to that. Which is why it's always funny anytime you hear about a new church claiming, they're doing church different. We've all come to know what that really means. Your music's a bit louder, your auditorium a bit dimmer, your pastor's preaching a bit more accessible. But it's the same thing still. And you can't really break out of that mold when there's a cultural expectation and our organizations are powered by donations from the parishioners. Change too much and giving can dry up. It's just a practical consideration. But one of the downsides of this economic model is that it limits change. Attempt a radical different expression of church and you'll likely have people leave to attend something more familiar. Now, repeat that over and over again across tens of thousands of churches and 50 plus years, and what do you get? One expression of church that dominates. Not because other expressions wouldn't be welcomed, but because the economic model is incentivized to churn out the same expression over and over and over again. So how do you break out of this cycle? Because my belief is that multiple expressions of church, all thriving in their uniqueness, is a healthier state for the church overall. Well, something needs to first break with the current model. A crack needs to form in the foundation. And my prediction is that more people than ever before are seeing that right now. Attendance has been on the decline for more than a decade after holding steady for decades prior. That trend has accelerated since the pandemic. We've already talked about that. Commercial real estate is down, also due to the pandemic, posing a massive vulnerability to so many of our ministries that have huge mortgages, substantial building maintenance costs, or building campaigns. These kinds of vulnerabilities are what it takes for change to become possible. There's that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when problems begin to arise, people are more willing to try other things. And again, I think this is good. More expressions of church is healthy. If you're wondering what I mean by that, well, there isn't one version of church that I think is better per se. There are a myriad of different options here, but it really comes down to challenging assumptions we have about church. Assumptions that aren't like biblically based things we do in church, but like just long-standing Western church expectations. So let's use the building one as an example. Most churches want their own buildings. We spend crazy amounts of money to make this happen. There's an opportunity cost there. So what if we didn't? What could an expression of church look like that doesn't own its own building? Or what about paid staff? What would an expression of church look like without any paid staff? What about service programming? That's not biblically based necessarily. What would an expression of church look like where communion and a shared meal is the biggest part of the church gathering rather than a lecture-style message is the biggest part. Begin to start challenging assumptions, combine different ideas together, and now you have so many different permutations, different expressions of church that could emerge from there. Now, change like this is very, very difficult, and the odds are stacked against it, but I think now may be the beginning of the perfect storm that allows for new expressions of church, and I, for one, would welcome that. Trend number 5, churches that prioritize fulfillment of mission over in-person attendance will make the greatest impacts. Now, this one's pretty self-explanatory. If you're curious what this looks like practically, I dedicated an entire video to it called The New Rules for Church Growth in a Post-Pandemic World. It comes with a free spreadsheet, download and all. Here's the bottom line. Your church exists to affect life change. That's your mission. Your mission is not to get as many people to attend a church service as possible. And that's because greater attendance does not perfectly translate to greater fulfillment of mission. Attendance is still worth tracking. One data point amongst many others, that it can provide some insight into your church's trajectory, but on its own, it is very unreliable and can be just downright misleading. And yet for decades, we have elevated attendance as the preeminent indicator of our church's mission fulfillment. It's time for a change. And the churches that make the greatest impact in the year ahead will be the ones that prioritize fulfillment of mission above all else, not in-person attendance. This will require more work and more focused effort, but it will yield much greater impact, which in my mind makes it worth it. And again, we've got a whole video dedicated to the how of actually doing that. If you're uncertain, make sure to check that out. It's linked in the description and above. Lastly, the final trend I want to hit on, churches that are able to win the weight will come out of 2021 healthier than ever before. Now, the phrase win the weight actually comes from the professional basketball team, the LA Clippers. When the NBA season was suspended in early 2020, the coaching staff of the Clippers encouraged their players to win the weight while the season was suspended until play could resume. They even filed trademarks for the phrase win the weight. Now, you may know how the story ends for the Clippers. They gave up a 3-1 series lead to the Denver Nuggets, lost in embarrassing fashion, became the joke of the league. Tough to see for Kawhi. Wow, maybe he shouldn't have left Toronto side. Their coach was also fired. That said, this phrase has stuck with me ever since because simply stated, there are a lot of forces beyond your control right now that are affecting your church's day-to-day operations. Even if you are meeting with no restrictions whatsoever, your congregation's posture to church has been changed due to the pandemic. And we talked about those changes already at length. With that being said, there are opportunities that will arise from this waiting period that you would not have had otherwise. And my belief is that churches that win the weight, that make the most of this weird time that we have this year, will be the ones that come out of it healthier than ever before. Inversely, the churches that bemoan this period, that cry, woe is me, that drag their feet through it, despite the inability to control these external forces, those churches will come out of this worse off. And while you and I have little choice over a lot right now, that is a choice we do have. So choose wisely. I'm telling my team the exact same thing right now. Thank you for your time, attention, and trust. If you made it this far, make sure to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm posting on both platforms every week. And if you like this content, I think you'll enjoy the content there as well. At Brady Shearer, my name, is the handle on both platforms, linked in the description. We'll talk soon.